Howdy, and welcome to Risky Standard, a psychedelic audio landscape in the shape of an actual play podcast featuring a rowdy group of best friends playing tabletop role-playing games together. I'm Mitch Brewster, your host and Firefly for today's continuation of our ongoing campaign of the Wildsea, written by Felix Isaacs and published by MythWorks. You can find links in the show notes. Check out the Wildsea and pick up a copy. You can find me over on Blue Sky at Magnesium B, and you can find the show over on Blue Sky at Risky Standard, or on Instagram, also at Risky Standard. Of course, you can also find us in the show's Discord, where we are chatting about games, chips, and all the little things that make life worth living. And we are now also talking about streaming. You can find us streaming on the first Thursday of every month, a little light variety hour. I think we're going to be on... Looking to Pete here. Twitch, YouTube, also on the show's Discord. You can catch the stream there. We're doing some field reports on different special interests. We are also answering listener voicemail over on the Risk Taker hotline. You can call that at 321-430-7475 to leave a question for the Risky Standard crew, and we'll give you a little risk assessment, give you some good advice, and make your day, hopefully.
Also wanted to say, if you are shy about your voice, you don't want to speak, you can also text the number.
Yeah, you can text, you can email. We've had some really good ones, like, what kind of bug is this? What kind of cartoon heist would you pull? Really wide open, blue skies, so hit us up.
You could also get, like, in Scream, he has, like, a little, like, voice modulator that he talks into. You could probably call us using one of those. I assume there's an app for that now. It feels like in the digital era.
And if you're calling from inside my house, go ahead and drop in the Discord. Let me know so I can quit looking, because it is freaking me out.
You can also find us over on our show's Patreon. That's patreon.com/riskystandard. Join to support the show. Help us pay for the immense amount of cash that we're sinking into this thing every single month. Solid gold toilets do not come cheap, folks. You can also gain access to monthly bonus episodes where we're playing side stories connected to the main campaigns, some world-building episodes, doing some one-shots, one-offs, and some non-game content as well. Doing some media touchstone reviews for things that have inspired the show, and some new experiments, some other things we're cooking up that we're excited to show you.
Chemicals. We're making research chemicals, and if you join the Patreon, we're going to mail them to you, and you can try them out first.
This show is a work of fiction. All offers of research chemicals are, of course, purely fictional and just for laughs.
Unless you want them.
And what's up? So today we are, as I already said, we are playing the Wildsea. We are back in it. When we last left off, the crew had...
Hold on, are you going to introduce us?
Oh, shit. No, I don't think so.
Hey, Mitch, aren't you forgetting something?
Yeah.
I don't think I've forgotten anything.
Who do you have with you here today? I bet you don't even have anyone here with you today.
Well, this is embarrassing, guys. I did not put an introduction section in my episode notes, but just for
Malcolm,
the fun of it.
Tim, you guys want to get lunch? I think Mitch has got this. Apparently.
So paying for lunch today, we have Peter Loftus.
That's right, folks. I am Pete. I'm America's #1 chip enjoyer. Today's the day after 4th of July. Just want to say congrats to me. I hit the triple. Pizza, hamburger, hot dog. Feeling great, stronger than ever.
It was 2 days ago, so there is a question of what effects the triple did have on you.
I had hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, and I experienced missing time.
We've also got Malcolm Hall here today.
Hey, Malcolm Hall, and yeah, totally crazy to eat all three of those foods in a single day. I mean, I personally would never do that, only on a special occasion, and I probably would also not throw in a burrito.
For me, it was Tuesday.
And of course, we got Timothy Mans on the Vox.
Here we are, baby. I didn't have any pizza, so if you guys want, just pray for me.
If you have anything you're not going to finish.
I'm a scraps kind of boy, so...
Historically, within the friend group, that is my job, and I feel like, Tim, if you step on my toes with this, I'll hurt you.
Brother,
get your fingers
have
bitten.
you ever seen me, finish a meal? I don't...
That's a good point.
I don't eat good. I'm not an eater.
And of course, big shout-outs to our producer, Liam Doherty, out in the wings. Thank you, Liam.
Whoop,
whoop. We're keeping this one nice and tight for you. Real easy, clean to edit.
Yep, 6.5 minutes on the intro. That's what you're looking for.
Let's get another 10 on this. So before I was so rudely interrupted, we are hopping back into our ongoing campaign of the Wildsea. When we last left off, our crew had just completed their inaugural journey across the Wildsea on the research vessel known as the Verdigale, under the command of their captain, the intellectual Clermont Montclair, across this reach of the Wildsea known as the Shaking Boughs, where rootquakes regularly surface up these kinds of pre-verdant ruins, this kind of salvage. All of this on your way to your destination, the bustling port of Caldermere, the kind of largest settlement in this region of the Wildsea. And when we last left off, you guys had sighted Caldermere on the horizon, ready for your approach, your first meeting with civilization so far in this game.
Oh, I just wish I had a big foghorn sound effect queued up. Yeah, I mean, I think like we've sort of been waiting for this for days, I imagine. I think Cal feels sort of nervous in a weird way. Like, civilization, bustling ports, something he's probably only really had once or twice, is much more accustomed to kind of being a little more remote. And I think kind of maybe waits in the map room and is sort of like watching the port come closer through one of the windows as he's sort of kind of like rolling up, vellums of different, I think, doodles and sketches of where we've been thus far and kind of making sure he's got everything all ready.
Nice. Anybody else want to tell us where they're at as we kind of pull in towards the port, and then I'll describe what we're seeing a little bit, and what the...
Yeah, I think Hex is kind of just a place we've seen him before, like kind of at the base of what essentially like the crow's nest lightning rod that powers the battery, doing his checkups and stuff, but just up there getting an overview as they come into port. Wants to see what's going on, feels good to get some back into more civilization and people, see the hustle and bustle of what's going on. It fills him with some excitement just to know what's out there and what can be learned and gathered and what can be traded as well.
What time of day is it?
Late morning, early afternoon.
Hey, nice time of day. What's the weather like?
As I recall, it's clear weather.
Clear weather?
Yes! That's what you want.
Reese, are you the one who is at the helm right now? Is that where we left off last time? I think it was.
I believe so, yes.
So yeah, you are the one who is in the pilot's cabin as the ship starts to approach. And I think we see Claremont has gone to the deck. He is unlatching like the securement straps for the snapograph attachment. He is capturing an image of Caldermere as we approach it. And like I said before, I'll kind of come back here now. There is the verdant sea spreading out before you, and then in the distance, getting closer every moment, this kind of eruption up from the sea, this massive ridge of rock and earth that is covered in the infrastructure of civilization, in buildings, in moving machines and parts. It is a bustling city built along the ridges and walls of this ancient caldera, this kind of volcanic crater that punches above the canopy. And you are, as you're getting closer, you can see that there's a break in the circumference of this caldera, this kind of opening in the wall that creates an entrance into the actual cauldron of the caldera, the kind of cratered dip behind it. Although it is difficult to see that beyond the mass of ships and structures that are rising up right in the middle of that break. And as we get closer, you mentioned a foghorn. I do think we are hearing. I think I mentioned it last time, right? We're already hearing the roar of other bites and engines, right? There is, even if we don't see them all right away, there are other ships on the Wildsea nearby moving about now. And as we get closer, we do hear horns, and we hear the cries of people working, big cranes built into the walls of this place, lifting and moving cargo. All of it centered at this break in the ridgeline, where there is an enormous kind of half moon roundhouse that ships are sailing into, that cargo is getting lifted out from and moved. And I think as we kind of start to approach, we can see.
Which way to Banana Bay?
I imagine there's I don't know if you've seen those sort of human hamster wheel powered cranes that they had in the Middle Ages.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I imagine. They're unloading cargo, and there's sort of Ectus running in a huge hamster wheel to lift up these giant crates.
Well, and I'm sure, I love how much Wildsea has, critters in the employ of the city or boats and stuff, so I'm sure that there are, swarms of mosquitoes, probably, ferrying, whatever, necessary immunizations or something from distant ports. There's, the medicinal mosquitoes, squirrels, I think, tying off anchor points to ships that dock and things like that.
Oh, yeah, trained monkeys, things like that, for sure.
We hinted at this last episode, but I have not been able to quit thinking about that the squirrels here have some rudimentary clothing they've fashioned. It's they're intelligent, but we don't know a whole lot about what's going on there, except that they're, they do get dressed.
They're doing something different. Yeah. And I think we said it last time, right? There's this massive statuary atop the ridgeline, this enormous sundial held aloft by an ectus and an ardent, other statuesque representations of those things, holding this huge sundial, which marks the time for you, Reese. It is, say 11, right? It is late morning, early afternoon.
I think he's a little bit annoyed with the timing. I think he wanted to get in early in the morning to get this over with so that he could get out there and
trying to meet
not only start his trade but also just check shit out.
And so as you get closer, right, like I said, I think you can kind of see the lower edges of this ridgeline, where it's connected to the canopy. There are I think these are businesses or places that deal directly with the sea, right? It is repair docks and salvage yards, right? With boats and barges that are unloading scrap to and from these lower buildings. And then as you rise up the sides of the ridges, you start to see, connected by switchback trails and by these funicular trolleys crawling up and down the sides of the mountain, residential and commercial buildings. And there are people, right, moving up these trails, riding in these cars, working on these shipyards and docks. You've been at sea for maybe a couple weeks now, and this is such a sharp contrast as you get closer that I think it's almost dizzying just to see this much life. I think Caldermere, that's kind of a good question as you guys start to pull closer towards this, what is called the Veil Port, this break in the wall. I don't know if anyone's ever been to a city this big before. I think Caldermere probably has somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 people. It is, I think, in my mind, kind of the biggest a Wildsea settlement gets typically. It is a big city in the Wildsea. I don't know if High Sonder is this big.
No, I think High Sonder's probably sitting strong at probably between 500 plus. Maybe there's 700 people there at tops.
And what about you, Hex? What about you, Caliph?
Yeah.
Have either of you ever been in a place this bustling before? Have you ever been to Caldermere? I guess is another great question.
No, never been to Caldermere. I definitely know, Hex grew up, in a port city kind of at the base of, the lighthouse settlement. But, as lighthouses tend to do, it's people who keep it. And there's a colony of, the Mothrin that live there, but it is definitely not a settlement. It is a point where people live. They maintain this lighthouse. Ships come in. It's a waypoint, but, yeah, definitely not a city by any means that would have that's kind of level of activity. So it's very exciting and almost novel to him to go to a place that has so much to offer in a world where so much of it is just kind of treetops.
And me, I don't think so. I've heard about it, obviously. I mean, everybody knows the song or like the old kind of phrases, like there's no halfway to Caldermere. Like you hear these things get passed around on the street. And I think that Montclair has painted quite a vivid image. But Cal feels like, I think maybe, I don't know, I think probably passed through Caskridge, but not Caldermere. This would be a brand new experience. He's, I think, nervous, but also kind of excited. Not a lot of people look like Cal, so I think part of this is also feeling kind of exposed out here in the bright daylight, not under the shadow under eaves. So I think he's kind of like got himself strapped. He's like ready, but a little nervous.
As you get closer to the Veiled Port, this break in the wall, you are joined by other wild ships coming in towards the port, and there are... at multiple points on the walls, I think that there are towers and turrets with individuals who are waving like semaphore, right? They're waving flags, right? There's like a, kind of guiding ships in, and there's a, almost like a quaintness and like a bureaucracy to like this. The ships start to have to kind of funnel in all towards this massive crescent-shaped roundhouse where, as the boats kind of line up and sail in, they are being brought in to load and unload cargo. And, like I said, there is this, like, ballet of crane arms moving around. Some of them are attached onto the roundhouse. Other are on, like, floating platforms on the Wildsea or built into the walls. And you can kind of see beyond the roundhouse, on the interior kind of sides of this break in the wall, there are cargo elevators going up and down. And there are also ships getting hauled up by massive chains to kind of dock up against the side of the walls. The sound, as you get closer, you approach the entranceway of this Veiled Port. You can hear from the walls the cries of merchants and would-be undercrew barking, trying to sell their wares, or seeking passage out onto the Wildsea from the ships that are coming the other way, that are leaving the port. And there's a flood of activity here. It is not a quiet time in Caldermere. I think even as you are sailing in right now, there is still occasionally you feel like, you can feel it in the rudder, right? The faint aftershock rumble of the rootquakes that have been going kind of non-stop since you first hit the shaking bows. And, you eventually kind of bring it into sail. I think you fall in behind like a... there's a big ship in front of you made out of like steel. Its hull is like steel plates kind of welded together. It has like a big double chainsaw bite. And there's like a rowdy crew of Ectus and Ardent working together. They have cranes on their own ship, and it is stacked high with like felled trees. There's a crew of hackers ahead of you who are bringing like good lumber into the port.
Cyberpunk 2077 music. They're coming in tight sunglasses and dusters, hauling lumber.
And, feel free to step in here as you want to, but, I think that the docking process is, pretty formulaic, right? Like, there is a crew of, dock workers here who are all in communication. They're shouting to each other, and as you pass through the entranceway of the roundhouse, I think that the ship is kind of directed down a lane, and you can see that there are, like, more than a dozen of these, like, stations inside the roundhouse, where there are dock workers with clipboards ready to speak to, whoever is, like, on the deck representing the crew. And I think there is this, like, as you get to your lane and pull in at this station, there is, like, an Ectus youth, who's... I think all of the Ectus we've seen, like, all Ixtalbor, right, is this big, bulky, like, kind of hulking Ectus. I think this is a really reedy, kind of like saguaro cactus, looking fella. All lanky, but he's, got a clipboard. He has no mouth. He doesn't have the unnerving grin of your quartermaster.
Hope he doesn't end up having to scream or anything.
And who's on the deck? It's you, Exum, right?
Yeah.
As you kind of pull up, he doesn't step onto your ship, but he steps up closer to it, and it's like a quick, like, what are you carrying? What's on the ship? How long are you intending to be here for?
Well, many wonderful things. You would love to hear about this, and I think Hex starts to kind of go into over-explained what he's been doing with the rootquakes, this thing about the player piano and the tornadoes, and the kid's just like, okay, you know what? Just kind of.
I think, after the whole story, it's just like, okay, so what's on the ship?
Well,
Wondrous things. I said.
Wondrous things.
Did you write that down?
Player piano and a wonderful Hall of Tarnanis. If we're looking at the basics.
And then it's a moment of like, okay, nobody scheduled to pick him up, got it, and he calls out like a berth to somebody else, and then like I think a gateway opens in front of you to admit you deeper into the dockways. You're handed like a slip of paper with a number on it, like that is like marked out as the next berthway that you need to sail into, and from there I think the ship is brought in, and again guided. Does any of you have Hive-In, right? Or not Hive-In? What's the not knock? Signaling is the
signaling.
Yeah. So there are multiple languages in the Wildsea, which is a thing we haven't touched on a ton. The game gives us like 7 or 8 of them. They have skills in the same way that your other kind of more practical skills all have ranks. But each language is not just how well you can speak this particular language, but it also includes kind of like a certain amount of knowledge or lore, right? So signaling as a language is the unspoken code broadcast with flags, flares, or signal lamps, often known by experienced travelers, military types, and smugglers. And lore includes information on various ships, weather types, and seagoing hazards. And I think you have signaling,
I do.
Right, Hexam?
Yeah.
You have a smattering of it? Is that what you have?
Yeah, a smattering of it. I think just, again, from growing up in a kind of a lighthouse colony, and with the ability to create little lightning flashes from his hands, he can kind of use that as the signal. Like you would use lantern signaling, or like how Morse code can still be done with flashes of light in the pace that you would do beeps.
Signal lantern, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he can kind of communicate
bullseye.
out that way, but also maybe with the help of Ixtalbor, some of the flags that ships would have can also be letting people know where we're going, what speeds we need to come in at, and whatnot. So
Yeah. And so, I think, between your knowledge, and perhaps Ixtalbor does pop his head up, right, to take in the sights as you arrive at port. You're able to follow the guidances that I think lead you into, a docking platform where there are several other ships here, and it is like there's probably like a painted number on a post here as you are kind of signed in. But, I think, as you arrive, right, on the docks, there are other ships unloading, right? I think maybe you end up being docked next to these, this crew of hackers, these people who go out and clear paths on the Wildsea, who come back with lumber. They have unloaded a lot of their lumber in that roundhouse, but their ship is next to you, and you hear them chatting as they get off. I think it's, like I said, mostly Arden and Ectus. But as you kind of step out, I think again there's just like a low roar of constant activity here, right? The Wildsea is never silent. We've talked about this. There's constantly the motion of the trees, the chittering of the different insects and other fauna that travel across it. There is the own roar of your engine and your bite. But I think all of that pales in comparison a little bit to this, just the sound of profuse civilization. And, I think Claremont is like a big child here. He is, excited looking around. This is his first time here as well. He is, I think as we discussed this, has spent his whole life in his settlement, the home base of the Montclair Mercantile Fleet. And so, just as I think, each person here might have their own interest in it, he's, I think, just staring. And I imagine, like I said, there are these cargo elevators, and there are also, I think, other elevators that are bringing folks up to the walls to come out. And you get on one of these, there's probably, a dozen or so other people on it. I think it's primarily Ardent and Ectus here in Caldermere. I think those are the kind of two dominant bloodlines that we see. But there are other, in the same way that Calathiel, right? You're the only Carchabora Isopodia that we're seeing, right? There are other, probably a couple Mothrin wrapped in gauze, like the slinking form of a Zelicrae, one of these kind of sentient colonies of humanoid spiders. Actually, they're not humanoid spiders. They're just a bunch of spiders in a humanoid shape, right? But they are on the thing as well, and perhaps other less common things as well. I think we see the kind of slow moving shape of a pagura, a kind of large crab-like humanoid carrying an enormous shell on their back made of scrap metal. dangling with the different items that they intend to bring to market. This kind of like a, humanoid hermit crab person.
Do they sleep in it at night?
They do, I think. If you've met a Pagura before.
Sleep in it. It's their house.
Yeah.
All right. Shit.
It's a
Fuck, sorry.
I'm a bug guy. You don't... It's not my job to educate you, okay?
Is this Reese? Is this Reese asking Calithiel?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually pretty...
Yeah, of course. That's his house.
The Pagura, I think, are like kind of commonly known as like merchants and traders, right? That is like, slowly moving up in the size of shell and the number of wares that they offer. This is like the most common like kind of like career path for these kind of porters on the Wildsea.
What's that in like Legend of Zelda? There's the kind of like guy you run into.
Beetle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what comes to mind for me. It's like just like stacked with like backpacks and pans and bags.
Yeah, and I think you're able to kind of follow this tide of wild sailors, right? Because that's mostly who this is. This crowd is wild sailors coming off boats in the dock. And you ride this cargo elevator up, or this actually it's not cargo, just this elevator up into the stone briefly through this kind of cool cavernous passage carved into the side of the ridgeline. And then you come out again, and you are on one of these like kind of, I think like paved switchback pathways that carve up along the side. Not far away from you, there is this like multi-tiered, huge, stacked stone structure. And I think there is like a hanging sign from the front of it, right? Like big wooden sign painted in bright bold lettering that says Stonehouse Junction. Blinking your eyes or, kind of getting used to the sunlight again, you see most of these wild sailors break off this way. This is a junction house. This is almost like a hostel or a hotel. This is like the kind of place that wild sailors tend to stay at. A place for meeting and sleeping. They offer private rooms. There's this place is big, right? There's probably more in there. There are like repairs, medical treatment, food, drink. It is kind of like a place to land for wild sailors visiting the city of Caldermere. And I think most settlements just have one of these, if they have one at all, right? Like a single junction. But you can see, on the other side of the Veleport, there's another one of these big stacked stone junction houses. And maybe another further one along, right? There are multiple servicing the wild sailors of this region who come to visit Caldermere, because this is such a bustling freeport. There are so many of you. And I think, a big smile on his face, Claremont looks at all of you and says, well, let's get settled. I'd love to speak briefly before we go our separate ways, explore the city of Caldermere a little bit, and explore the city of Caldermere a little bit, excuse me, and then we can...
Oh, you're so excited.
Well, it's just I've never been here before.
Well, we're going separate ways?
Well, we don't have to, of course. I have my own plans. There's a few things I'd like to see to here in Caldermere before we take back to the sea. I don't want to spend too much time in the city. He looks back out over the Wildsea. Even as we speak, these rootquakes are pushing up valuable relics, interesting discoveries, and we don't want to be the last to get after them, but certainly I don't expect you to follow my every step while we're here in port, though I do have a few things I'd like to show some of you, Hexam especially, but let us get settled in, and then we can go have a brief briefing, a debriefing before we take to the streets of Caldermere. And
does he sing it?
Yes.
He like sort of sings songs.
Yeah. The song fills him.
My man is chuffed right now.
Yeah, he is. He has also changed back into. It's not the same cream-colored suit that got ruined by the Tarnanas, but it is a very similar one, right? Like this, he's done like an extra knot in the ascot to really highlight like the golden M embroidered there. And so I want to take a second here, now that we are in Caldermere, before we kind of start this session, to talk a little bit about what it looks like to arrive at a freeport for the crew, what our kind of game options are, and then, I've got some things planned, but also this is a little bit of a self-directed thing in the Wildsea, right? Like when you're at port, you guys have control here to kind of do what you'd like to do.
Okay. Independent reading time coming up.
I think, before we kind of dive into the rest of the session in Caldermere, I want to take a second to kind of address, the game apparatus here. We are in Caldermere, which is a freeport. It is a settlement, which means that you have in this moment a lot of opportunity to acquire things that you wouldn't be able to normally acquire, right? To trade the resources that you have gathered for different resources, which is going to be a part of this session. You're going to be a little bit zoomed out at times as we kind of follow the narrative thread of the characters, exploring Caldermere, kind of accomplishing what they want to accomplish, whether that is, for instance, repairing the old revolver they found, right? Or, advancing your character by developing new aspects or enhancing your old aspects. We can kind of talk about what each of those is going to look like as we do them. And part of that is also going to be, I want to talk about a mechanic that we have not been highlighting on the show yet, but which is going to become very important now, and which I want us to try and keep our eyes peeled on for the future, which is the milestone mechanic. I don't know if we've mentioned them or not before yet, but milestones in the Wildsea are kind of the experience point equivalent that you might find in other games. They are the thing that you're going to use to enhance your character, to gain new skill ranks, to develop your aspects, or to gain new aspects as we go along. Unlike another game where you would just have an experience point, milestones are narrative achievements that we record on your character sheet, kind of in response to you accomplishing something or something happening. They represent things that are important here for your character. And so the way the game works normally is we should be kind of recording them as they come, right? And there are minor milestones, which usually are going to be happening once a session, and major milestones, which kind of mark the end of an arc and are worth more as this kind of meta currency for advancing your character. And so I want us to kind of run through those real quick, just so we can kind of get a sense of where each character is at in terms of their advancement. First, I gave everybody, as the Firefly, I gave everyone one minor milestone, which is that you all safely recovered the pre-verdant player piano. And then maybe we can go around real quick and just kind of quickly read out the other minor milestones that you guys have jotted down from the last couple of sessions.
Yeah.
Sure.
So again, with the player piano that we all got, I think this is another one that we all kind of took and worded in for our own thing. But the harvesting of the lost Tarnana farm is another one.
Tarnana. The Tarnana.
And then also for Hex, it's the perfect execution of a near miss on the good ship Verdigale. So that is his, fearless and skilled piloting of the ship, avoiding direct collision with the bar that was the player piano was in. The near miss maybe gave him a false sense of accomplishment, but it taught him that there's ways to pilot the ship maybe better and to keep an eye on it. But both a learning experience and a scary thing that taught him going forward what it's like to be behind the helm, and his an experience to share.
Great. Yeah, I like that. Malcolm, you want to read yours off real quick?
Sure. On top of the player piano extraction, I also climbed a tall bough to harvest Tarnanas, and I also explored the lost Tarnana farm. So a bit of a Tarnana-heavy early minor stone cache, but we all got to start somewhere.
I added that I recovered salvage from the Tarnana plantation, that I saved Captain Montclair from a near-death fall, and showed Reese how to delve by anchor bite. So that's a total of 4 for me.
And so, this is my challenge to each of you, because this is kind of meant to be player-driven, right? You can record a minor milestone once per session, usually immediately after an event you want to have a small but lasting effect on your character, which could be after accomplishing a personal goal, taking part in a particularly memorable NPC counter, or surviving a hard-won fight. So obviously we're all a team, we're working together. But as we go forward, kind of keep your eyes peeled, and if in a moment in a session, if it feels like, oh, that's a milestone, it probably is, and so we should jot it down then. And that is kind of how we will continue to advance these characters as you grow as wild sailors.
Not me. I'm not working as a team, and when I see a milestone, I'm going to seize it for myself.
I think there is, like I said, I think Claremont leads you all into this junction, this big like multi-tiered stone building that is, again, I kind of just want to hit it like bustling with life and action. There are wild sailors coming in and out, crew of obviously very different stripes, right? Like there are these big burly hackers, these like construction workers following you up. But I think, you see, as you kind of come in through the big wide open doorways into this building, right, there is like a collection of a crew of Gao, all of these fungal mushroom people who we've not really seen before, but who are each pretty different from body to body, but like a humanoid fungal growth, right, with like varying numbers of eyes, and they are chattering to each other in Gaudim, their language, which is these like soft, subtle movements and twitches accompanied by spore bursts, right? The air is thick with the fragrance of their conversation. And you can see, they are garbed. Each of them is carrying, I imagine, like bandoliers of small vials and potions. This is like some kind of alchemical crew come off the Wildsea from harvesting regions, or about to venture onto the Wildsea to do just the same.
In my mind, it's like the Gao are kind of like whenever you grow grow your own mushrooms at home from like one of those substrate blocks. Like they just overnight, suddenly there's a ton of them in like little creatures. So I'm imagining these guys are like, leaving a little trail of pheromone dust.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Everywhere they go, and kind of like farting and belching in lively conversation.
Yeah, pretty much, right? It is like, these like pheromonal bursts, these like kind of like spore bursts are like a key part of the language, which I mean also probably maybe there is an ardent in the crew who has like these little mini perfume bottles, right? Like hanging on like the side of his vest, right, to like accompany certain declarations, right? You see him like laughing, and as he laughs, like spraying one into the air to like accentuate how hilarious he finds his companion's joke.
Yeah,
he's got like a special jacket.
The squirt flower that a clown might have that he taps his chest and it
or like little spore berries that he's bursting that create the same like little like kind of like burst in the air of like a pheromonic expression. And there, like I said, there are many people here, and this junction is like kind of a hotel, but I imagine it's not just that, right? There is, behind like a hanging white curtain, like a little sign that says medical. This is like a place to heal your wounds, to get some medical like treatment from your time on the Wildsea. There is, I think, like a counter at the back of the room, right? And Reese, this is catches your eye probably immediately, right? You see, like, I think, like, word bearers there, like, getting mail or dropping mail, right? There is, like, a small little, like, mail counter here where, like, messages and packages are being exchanged. This is, like, kind of like a one-stop shop for wild sailors right by the docks where you can get, like, most of your business done, without having to go too far from your ship. And, of course, there's plenty of more, it's a massive city. There's a lot of things here. But that is, this place right here is for wild sailors.
Do I have mail, or have I not taken my first job yet?
So that's a good question.
Asking the person at the counter.
Yeah.
Do I have mail, or would I need to maybe work first?
I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, as we come to this session, because the word bearer is really interesting, right? You are oath-bound to deliver mail. Mm-hmm. And we have not talked a lot about, like, what is the infrastructure of that exactly? I think you told me you were rescued by this word bearer, and I kind of have been assuming that she is also the one that, like, let you kind of take the oath from, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because I assume that there has to be some kind of lineage here, right? Some kind of, like
vampires, the one, the one who made me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Like a word bearer can let another person take the oath to become one, but I don't know how much of like a formal infrastructure there is beyond that. That's kind of like a question mark to me. But in terms of you and this game, I think the way that I would like to treat it, right, is that I think Reese is gonna almost always have mail on him, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe that is like, I don't know if you have gotten any yet, right? This could be the first time you're getting some. That's a question for you to answer. But I think the way that I want to treat this is like, you are kind of going to ambiently be collecting mail and things to pass on as you travel. Yeah, we'll assume that some of that is happening off screen.
And then once my mail meter is full, I get to unleash a sort of postal.
You can do a special
super
attack.
Yeah.
Special attack.
You can go postal.
Postal limit break. Yes.
You can go postal for 60 seconds. That's an AOE spell.
No, but what I do want to do is kind of like zoom in sometimes like on interesting packages or deliveries.
Yeah.
But
okay, that's kind of what I was asking. Like, is there I'm not gonna have a sheet of all of these different
that's like
things. It's just going to be a sort of tool moving forward, and there's going to be some more highlighted pieces of mail versus
exactly in the same way that when the ship is damaged and say like Hexam needs to repair it, we'll zoom in for that roll that happens. But also we're assuming Hexam is fixing little things all the time on the ship, right? You know what I mean? That you're all always doing your own jobs, your work, and then when it's fictionally interesting, we'll zoom in and we'll like hit that. And so you know what, though, but probably as you come in, do you have mail already?
I do.
And so maybe there is an exchange at this counter here, right? Like another word bearer, I think like an older, ardent, right? Like waves you down when he sees. How do I know that you're a word bearer when I see you?
That's another thing too. I guess I should have really thought more about
postage
this,
stamp
but. Yeah, there's one of my aspects, respect runs deep. Your clothes, your posture, your look. Word bearers are afforded a rare respect. Treat conflicts as triumphs when commanding authority in a settlement with a junction. I don't think that there is a uniform per se, but perhaps there is a. I don't know. I'll ask you what you think. Maybe like a hat. Like we have a very specific style of hat.
Okay.
Only word bearers really wear this hat. Like you know when they walk in, they have a hat and they have like a patch on their messenger bag, like sort of like a sheriff's badge.
I like that. So like, what are those hats? Like, what's the hat? What's the badge?
The hat is I think it's like a tri-corner hat. I think that those are probably out of style. Yeah.
They're
kind of old. They're kind of traditional, but now it's kind of like a postman, at least in the States, they wear a pith helmet.
They
you know
do,
what I'm talking
actually.
about? I saw one the other day.
Careers
Yeah,
you can carry a pith helmet in.
Yeah,
That's true.
So I think that word bearers wear a tri-corner hat, and they have on the strap of their messenger bag a symbol. And what is that symbol? I just want I think a little just envelope.
Yeah, I mean that's straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A little envelope, an envelope, and then you can it's sealed with a leaf.
And this is just a little a patch embroidered on there.
Yes.
Is it different mail carriers have different seals? That's probably true, right? Depending on where you're coming or going from, they probably have different stamps, so it's actually coming from wherever.
Maybe.
I'm just noodling around. No, it's stupid even to think that. I'm just one.
I mean, probably, each of these is handmade, right? It's probably made by the person who's, you've taken the oath under,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
There's probably, different sort of subcultures within word bearing, too, I assume.
And so, there is, this small mail counter here, and so, right, probably you get called over, right, to drop off some things. You can trust a porter here to carry it on, and also, right, there's questions like, where are you going? How long are you here for? I've got these that need to go out. This kind of exchange. Claremont kind of goes to the desk of this place, right? I think that there is probably a big hanging chalkboard behind this, right? With there are people there who constantly noting down how many rooms are available in this junction house. There's probably advertisements as well, right? Hand chalked advertisements. You can see Carolyn Varr and her Miraculous Spirit Orchestra at Madame Zira's Twilight Review. Here until the end of spring. Things like that, right? That are kind of all across this different big board. Advertisements, information. I imagine on a wall somewhere here there is a big framed map, top-down map of the city of Caldermere and its various neighborhoods and districts with pins with scraps of paper naming specific businesses and places. With the assumption that maybe some of these have been, you got to get in good with the junction house owner to get your business on the board. And, I think Claremont speaks to someone at this front counter for a little bit, reaches into his own jacket to pull out some scratch, these amber chips, these, small pieces of, precious metal, various, little, there's not money. We've talked about this, right? It's barter, and it's, exchange of small, valuable things are kind of the word of the day. But I think, he comes back to your group. I've arranged a room for all of you here, and, of course, I do have some research and study to do, so I've arranged a private room for myself. But before we go to explore, I think today could be a bit of a rec day, a little bit of recreation before we get to the hard work. I just wanted to talk a bit about my intentions for our stay here, and for our next step in our journey of discovery and exploration. And, I think that there are, kind of just some general kind of open areas. I think a lot about some of the hostels I've been in that have just kind of these maybe there's a little chemical burner with making hot water for some tea bags that are out there, things like that. Some light refreshments that are out there and available. And I think Claremont gathers you all here. I don't want to keep you all too long. I'm excited to see the city myself, and I'm sure you are as well. I just want to say that I'm proud of each and every one of you for getting us here to Caldermere. This was our first test as a crew. Could we make it on the Wildsea together? And not only did we make it, but we discovered something fascinating. I've had a chance on these last few days to take some sketches of the instrument in our berths, its mechanisms as best as I can understand them. But I will say, though it is beautiful, I am not attached to it. The Verdigale is a beautiful vessel, but it is not complete. There are many other tools we will need on our journeys, things that will help us better understand the mysteries of the Wildsea, and help me at last discern its true shape. Similarly, I do love Ixtalbor's Tarnana tarts, of course. And Ixtalbor.
His Tarnana pudding and his Tarnana cake and
Baked Tarnana.
Baked Tarnana, of course.
Tarnana kebab.
Tarnana splits.
Tarnana butter.
Tarnana sundaes.
Yeah.
The list goes on.
I work with what I've got. And of course you do, and we love it. But we are not a crew of chefs. We are explorers, researchers, and I think it is best that we trade off our cargo for something more useful in our pursuits before it goes to spoil. My goals here, to outfit the ship, to outfit ourselves with whatever we need, to get a lay of the land, talk to some of the other members of the Lantern Society who reside here in Caldermere, get a sense of where the best salvage might be pushed up by these rootquakes, and then, once we have done so, once we have outfitted ourselves, once we have sampled the delights of Caldermere.
Okay, easy now.
Drops a baritone. He's visibly sweating.
Humna. Then we shall set sail again. And it's a good base of operations to explore the sea while these rootquakes are pushing up what they can. But I don't want to be here too long. That's my only concern. As you can see, and I think he gestures to the huge amounts of people kind of coming in and out of here. The busyness of the junction. We are not the only crew who have been drawn in by the promise of what might surface in the wake of these rootquakes. I'm eager to beat any of our rival researchers or any of these scavengers who lack the true appreciation for what they might find out on the waves. I'd hate to see a true relic broken down for parts when it could be studied, which one it might give us insight. And I think with that, Claremont is going to kind of release you guys. Let us plan to meet here again at night's close and share our findings and make the plan for the day thereafter. But there's an element here, like I said, I kind of want to turn the steering wheel over to you guys a little bit. We kind of talk about what you want to do in Caldermere while you're here. We already, as players, we already have a little bit of an idea of some of the opportunities that await us in Caldermere. If you subscribe to our Patreon, check out our bonus episodes. You can hear us build the city of Caldermere itself by playing the game I'm Sorry, Did You Say Street Magic by Caro Assertion. where we sketched out what some of the neighborhoods and inhabitants of this bustling port city are. But we're not limited to those things we've already described, and there's a lot here to see and do. And so we can, like I said, kind of zoom out a little bit, kind of zoom in as we need to kind of play through some of these elements. Beamsaber had what we used to call downtime sessions, and this is not exactly that, but it's probably, kind of close in spirit, where this is like a chance to improve the characters, a chance to trade some of your cargo to improve the ship.
Yeah. So I guess we're all standing around there, like right where the docks let out.
Yeah, I think at this point, right, like Claremont has I think actually right before he leaves, he does, kind of touch you on the shoulder, Hexam. Mm-hmm. And I think he tells you, there is a coffee house in the Mosslight quarter, the entertainment district of the city. So I've been told. It's called the Scholar's Cup, and it is a salon for members of the Lantern Society and other intellectuals, a chance to discuss and debate, to share research. I intend on visiting it this evening. I would love to have your accompaniment and see what you think of the intellectual society here in Caldermere, and maybe we can share a few findings of our own. Who knows?
Gladly, Captain. I would love to do this. I think I might need something a little bit stronger before the coffee, but tonight we'll see what these scholars have to say.
And then he, I think, Claremont does, cut loose to go follow his own things. I think Ixtobor has left you guys pretty early on here, right? I think he
didn't listen to the thing about.
I think you hear a cry of recognition from him when he sees another kind of older Ectus across the room. Similarly, kind of like heavily, it has these like vegetable scarring tattoos, and I think he waves off to you, and then calls out to this other Ectus in like the thick rolling tongue of Saprec, the Ectus language, and they're gone, right? He does not stick around to see what the rest of the Verdigale is doing. And so I think it's the three of you in the Junction House, right, at this kind of moment of like, Claremont's given you his feelings on what the time Caldermere here should be spent on. And we can zoom in or we can zoom out if you guys want to disperse. I'm happy to put the camera wherever you guys want to put it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as, Claremont takes off and we're all set to our own devices, we see these, like, kind of on the outer, like, bay, these ships that are zipping past. These are not, like, cargo ships. These are clearly, like, racing vessels. And I think as we see some of them zip, across the opening in the caldera, we see where they come in, and all of these, like, racer ship pilots are getting off and going into what we have called in, so you said, or did you say Street Magic? The Cutters Club, which is, like, the headquarters for all these racers and other, it's kind of a bar here in the port where people can go trade stories and kind of cut loose. I think that Hex wants to go down there and gather some sailor stories about these rootquakes in hopes of hearing what people experience as they've been on the Wildsea, and gather more stories that can help him build this rootquake detection system. Even if it's just hearing, like, yeah, every time before a rootquake happens, it's going to smell like this, so that he can start building his stories and build up things to look for that will help inform ways to detect this rootquake system that he can, start studying and hopefully build a working theory on ways to detect those quakes. But it's going to be by hearing these stories, talking to people, buying a round of drinks, whatever that might be. But I think it is a study of sorts, a social study on the tales people tell.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good moment before we jump right into that, just to cover some of the ongoing tracks that we have right now, because this sounds to me like this is part of your project track, which is you started this on the journey here. It's to create an early rootquake detection system, that's right?
Correct, yeah.
And so you have 1 out of 4 segments marked on that, and when that project is done, you will have created the object of your desire, this system for detecting rootquakes before they have started or before they have reached their peak. And so working on that, will be a way to advance that track and potentially eventually fill it. In addition to that track, though, we have a couple other tracks that are ongoing. There is the Growing Rootquakes, which is a 5-segment track that, as it sounds, is kind of keeping track of these rootquakes that are spreading throughout this area, which have been kind of steadily growing in frequency and intensity during your time journeying towards Caldermere. And that is currently at 3 out of 5 segments. However, there is also what we call a break in this track that comes between the 3rd and 4th segment. And when we hit a break, it's kind of a sign that something is going to happen, or like something is going to change about the track, or something is going to be revealed about the track. And we have not seen the consequence of reaching that break yet. And I'm not going to give it to you right now, but that is going to be something I just want to put in our minds. And we will see that before that track progresses any further. Yeah. In addition to that, I guess it's worth mentioning the ship does have one damage to the saws rating right now. You did take a little damage to your saws when you were trying to get past the Tarnana farm. And I think each of you has taken a little bit of damage to at least one of your aspects as well during this. Yeah. So recovery is another option here. So I guess before we follow Hexam down to this club to kind of pursue this track, is there anything like there with the 3 of you, right? Anything that's said or any kind of like exchange, or should we kind of start following the characters as they kind of pursue some of these tasks?
Let's split up, gang.
Nice.
Well, how do you want to go from here? I mean, I think Calithiel is sort of absorbing all the sights and sounds here, and I've heard a little bit about, we just found a miracle in the Wildsea, right? Is this sort of, as far as Calithiel is concerned, like haunted piano. That sort of automated, player piano's borderline a ghost as far as he's concerned. So it's like I am trying to go figure out what's going on with that. We heard about the spectral orchestra, which I think is going to be my first stop. You're welcome to join if you like, but no pressure.
Well, I think that's later tonight, unless there's a matinee.
I just got here.
You just go. Okay.
I imagine Zero's Twilight Review. Right, I think probably the show starts in the evening, right? So if you're going for the show, that's in the evening. If you are going there to try and sell a piano, you can probably do that any time of day.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So why don't we follow Hex first, and then we kind of bounce around. I guess is that where Calithiel's gonna go? Is he gonna try and see if this?
I'm heading that way. Yeah, and I think,
are we pushing the piano down the street on like a dolly?
Or do we hire a team of someone to get it there? How?
I think we should do it ourselves. I think we're all strong enough.
I would imagine you would talk to someone before you would go to the work of moving a piano through the city.
Hey, what's up? We brought this piano here.
Do you want to buy it? No?
So,
okay.
Okay, well, I'll just take it right back then.
Well, so it's worth mentioning here too that you're not gonna sell the piano, right?
We're going to barter.
Yeah, there's not a pile. There's no coin stat. I'm not gonna give you money, right? You can barter and trade things. That can be a little networked and ambiguous, right? But normally, the way this works is that cargo is generally traded for either a different cargo or a bunch of a smaller different resource. And if there's a thing you're trying to get, we can talk about what that is. Or the other kind of main use of cargo, especially of these bigger kind of holdings of resource, is to trade them in for improvements to the ship. And so when we built the ship, you all were given a number of stakes. And every choice that you made on the ship cost a different amount of stakes, right? You gave the ship a research motif, right? That cost you 2 stakes. You gave the ship a harpoon turret. That cost 2 stakes when we built the ship. These were all kind of resources that you spent at the beginning of the game before we started to build the ship. Cargo can normally be traded one for one. One piece of cargo is 1 stake's worth of improvement to the ships, to the ship. However, as we discussed when we recovered it, the piano is pre-verdant, which is a sign that it is worth more than just a regular piece of cargo. And so depending on how you roll and who you kind of find to give it to and how that all works out, it is going to be worth more stakes. And that is like where the wheel is in your hands. But it is worth maybe thinking about for a minute of like what improvements to this ship do you want to make, right? That is kind of like the loop of this game is going to be traveling and exploring and collecting resources to trade in for improving yourself, for improving the ship, so on and so forth. Like, it's not really a game of accumulation in terms of like trying to get rich. You trade things for things in this world primarily. So something to think about. But maybe we start here. If you want to start here, Hex, with like trying to work on this project a little bit, like during the day.
Yeah, I think it's just as he heads down to the Cutters Club, he kind of does a cold introduction to people, being like, well, I don't usually drink, but well, in Caldermere, and sets it down in front of some of these racers, and kind of goes, I'm somewhat of a pilot myself, so, and then goes into. He starts getting into the story about how he had the near miss with the Verdigale and how they almost crashed in this bar, but I really, really,
You're kind of like talking tall
about knowing how to pilot a ship myself, to get them talking and being like.
And there's a lot here, I think, an Ectus on the side, like, well, what kind of bite you got?
Oh, a little worse for the wear right now, but, starts describing the ship and how it is a research vessel, of course. When I want it to, we can really get it moving, and it's goes into how the saw prow and the skull of the Leviathan that we use, and how that actually really does move through the treetops quite well. But with these rootquakes, we've been having to use a little bit harder. How do you guys do that when you're picking up speed out there? I mean, is that something you consider around Caldermere? We heard there's been a bunch happening. What's going on with that?
Older, ardent bartenders, like, well, it's not racing if there's not a little bump in the sea.
Oh, of course. But, how do you... Tell me this. How do you deal with that? He's not great at talking the lingo, but he is, I hear you can smell it in the air. Is that true? Do you find that to be always the case? I've noticed a scent that comes when one's about to, present itself.
So there's 2 options here. We did this last time. I'm going to give you this option again, Hex. Mm-hmm. There are kind of 3 ways of like working on a project. There's just time, right? Spending time working on it. And so if Hex is just like chatting it up in here, trying to get people to talk to him, mm-hmm. I will let you just mark a box on this project.
Okay.
A quicker but riskier way to make progress on it is to roll for it, right?
Right.
And so I think the difference there for me is like, you're kind of an outsider, right? You're not a racer. And I think you can tell everyone here, right, is in, I don't know if they have a uniform, but they're all wearing, I imagine like gear that makes it clear they are racers, right? I imagine they all have like, I think they all wear like a gauntlet that has like a handful of like kind of tools along the side there, mm-hmm. some line, like kind of like a quick repair stuff that you would need to adjust like while racing. Okay. They all, like, a lot of them have like, I imagine like, like slitted goggles, or like different kinds of eye protection, right, that they're wearing around their necks or on their backs, because they're piloting these tiny light, like little cutters, right? These little, a lot of them are piloting things probably closer to Reese's Outrunner than they are like full-size ships, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think there is a little bit of like, who is this like kind of weird Mothrin who is like clearly not dressed, right? You've got your like lab robe on, right? Uh-huh. You are not dressed like a racer. You're trying to talk about your like, what is basically a barge to them, right? Yeah. And so I think if you want to roll to like, to be charming, right?
Absolutely.
To get in.
Yeah, this is. him trying to ask a lot of questions that don't make sense to elicit certain responses, hoping that it's
like
casual.
going into like a steel fitters bar and just being like, okay, so like, what's the mixture of metal that you guys use on these things or
Who
whatever?
loves doing
Like,
it, right? And you would do
I'm a lot like you.
yeah,
I'm somewhat of a racer myself.
yeah, exactly. So, if you want to roll, I think there's a chance to like add more progress to this,
Right.
Or you could spend a resource here, right? I think if you want to spend a resource here, I'll up the number of tracks or a number of segments we mark on this track. That's kind of your call, right? But I think it's kind of a haughty crowd here. I think you're getting a little bit of a cold reception at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is like a specialized bar for these guys who race these tiny hyper light vessels, and you're not those guys.
Yeah, I'll roll for it. I think that is part of what Hexton likes to consider his charm, and maybe others find obnoxious, that he is going to maybe push his.
Now, is this? Does Hex realize that he's like not wanted here, or is this like?
I think he gets wafts of it, but we'll push through that.
Oh, it's not his first time.
Oh, no, I think that, there is a certain level of, fake it till you make it that is the only way that you're going to get things to happen. So he knows that it's that case, but there's still also the part of him that goes, but I think I can do it. I think I can make them
Sure.
welcome me.
All right, so let's make a roll here. What? Let's start off with an edge. What edge are you using on this roll?
Yeah, I guess it would be sharps then. Logic, wit, planning, outmaneuver others in verbal conflict, as it says here. So
Sure.
I guess it would be sharps doing that. And then from there, do I also then what skill I would use for that?
Yeah, a skill, and then if you have an advantage, that's the other.
Yeah, I guess the skill would be, it's a study of sorts, social study on how to interact with these people, and also studying what they tell me and how that can be applied to any of the science of rootquake detection.
Okay, and then is there an advantage here?
Advantage. I don't really think so.
Just 2 from the hip then. 2d6.
Rolling 2d6. Let's go. 2 4s, doubles, baby.
Ah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that is a success with a twist, which is interesting. What is the twist here?
Is this a twist that is beneficial necessarily?
It doesn't have to be. It could be positive or negative.
Is there like a move or a thing you're doing, like as you're posturing at expertise here or something, which is sort of like maybe you just sort of accidentally get it right, and people are like, "Oh, you're in."
Yeah, that was my thing. Or like, in trying to figure out,
you stumble into saying the right thing, and it's like accidentally you've said the code word.
Yeah, or just like. He does learn something very weird that does seem to come before rootquake. I don't, but I want to hear yours, Mitch. You went ooh, and I always love what follows the ooh.
But what if the twist here is that, like, what if someone makes you come out on the waves with them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure. It's a classic sailor move.
This is, because this is a conflict. This is not a triumph, right? Which means that there needs to be a drawback or something. And so, as part of the success, I am going to let you mark 2 segments on this project track. It is almost done.
So someone just making me put my money where my mouth is and being like, all right.
Exactly. It's like,
You think you're bad? Come and roll with this crew, then. We're all getting out on our jet skis later.
Of course.
I'm trying to think of like let's say this is an Ardent, right? This is like a younger Ardent, who finds your like shtick like kind of charming, or not charming per se, but like there's a little bit of like it's kind of fun, right? So, like that this kind of kooky Mothran scientist is coming here trying to like ask these racers all this question. This is like a young Ardent. His name is Drake. It's like Drake with a G, but I think he's got like it's like dyed, it's like painted white, like leather, like cuirass, like it's a racing suit, right? Like, he's got like shin pads, like gauntlets. He's got like the tool gauntlet here, these like red and white striped, like, like shutter shade goggles. his spore scarf is also red and white, like this kind of cherry red and then this cream white. You know, I think he's like, there's a lot of ways you can detect a rootquake here. You know, I've grown my whole life up here in Caldermere, and I know what to look for, but I don't know how to explain that to you. You know what I mean? It's a sensation. It's a scent in the air. It's a feeling.
Of course.
Let me show you, right? And this is like a couple cups deep. And I think he pulls Hexam down. You guys are winding down these like back and forth pathways, and there is probably like a dock kind of below. What is the name of the yacht club again? I've already forget. Oh, the Cutter's Edge Club, right? Yeah. The Cutter's Edge. Right. There's a dock attached to the Cutter's Edge, and I think that there are all of these tiny racing vessels. Your ship is standard size according to the rules. These are all small. They have room for one, like two people at most, right? I think it's like, engine is behind you, the cut is in front of you. A lot of them have an actual sail to adjust, like help catch wind and adjust direction. And I think he takes you out on his ship, right? The Narrow Edge, which is this slim racing vessel that has... I think instead of like one saw prow, it has 3 really thin saw prows like in a line next to each other that are like on an articulating angle that can like let it cut down or up to the side really easily.
Cool.
And as you kind of dip onto the Wildsea, right? He grabs your hand and like makes you hold it like right above the treetops. It's like feel the shaking of the leaves, the way it comes up. There's a kind of tension that's going to come. It's not until that tension is there that there's a real quake coming. And, I think this is like, he does this little tutorial, and then he makes you take the Narrow Edge out onto the Wildsea there, right? It's like, you just give it a go. You zip around on this thing, You can feel every movement of the treetop when you're on a ship like this.
Yeah.
Your research vessel, it's cushioning too much of the blow. You're not feeling any of that. And so I'm going to say you're going to take a damage here, Hexam.
Okay. Yeah. He hits about.
Yeah, exactly, right? I think, this is like maybe a couple hours of like conversation, drinking, and then trying out the Narrow Edge in the kind of like safety of being right next to the Caldermere Ridge, right? Even if you fall through below, you can climb back up the side of like the actual ridge line, right? Okay. Just below the trees. And so I think you walk away with it like with a much better sense of like there is a smell, right? And it's kind of like the shaking of like spores bursting below, gases that have been trapped under the trees kind of coming to the top. There's like a scent you can kind of pick up when a rootquake is about to hit. And I think this Greg, he in the hour or two you're out there, he's there. Smell it now. There's another one coming, and then a few minutes afterwards, another one of these slow rolling rootquakes will kind of start shaking the treetop.
I think even the tension that's like on the bigger ship, I think that is a huge takeaway for Hex. That like our ship doesn't have that. I don't have the pressure sensor of like the tension of the trees actually holding the ship up in a way that I could, by adding some sensor of that to the ship, be able to tell that there is like, the support or tension of the branches is different when one is about to like come through.
But to that end, I am giving you a damage. You can take that to whichever aspect you like, but I do think you eat shit a couple of times, right? Trying to feel the rootquake, and to feel the waves.
What do I add?
And this could not. This could also be that it's not actually a physical injury. It could be scrapes. It could be cuts. It could be Cresrin burn. It could also just be a wound to your pride, right? To doing something that you're not that good at, and then failing in front of someone who's much better at it.
Yeah, I think that is it. That Hex likes to think of himself as very good at almost anything he needs to do, but this is clearly one that he is not well equipped for. So I think that it is a humbling experience to look like such a loser in front of the cool racer.
So what aspect do you want to mark damage in there?
I guess, do you know what? I think I'll do it in Deckside Engineer. That I think it just is a moment where it teaches him there's a lot more to learn about operating a ship on the Wildsea. He can fix things, but there's always something else that, on a bigger ship he is not considering and so like it in that moment he is humbled and needs to. There's more to be learned on the Wildsea. He does not know it all, and
Cool. And so I think we can kind of pull our camera back there, right, as Hex is like jotting the notes down from what he's learned into his journal, kind of the accumulated knowledge that has given you these two advancements on your
back
project
at the bar
track.
with an ice pack on his black eye he got from
Yeah, and this time the bartender slides you right like this kind of like a fermented honey beer on the house, right? Yeah. You're a little more accepted in the racing room now that you've sailed a racer for the first time.
Yeah.
Cool. So while Hexam is boozing and schmoozing down at the Cutter's Edge Club, why don't we kind of follow turn our camera towards one of the...
It's research.
Yeah, for sure. I've been doing a lot of research lately. So why don't we turn our camera, like the camera lifts out of the Cutter's Edge Club, and we can kind of like helicopter move over these like densely populated ridge lines, atop the like kind of the actual ridge of the caldera. There is a set of rails, a train car, right, several train cars probably, kind of running from station to station all along the top of this thing, and we can kind of see their crisscrossing movement as we glide over Caldermere and kind of hone in on another member of the Verdigale, another member of the crew, on their day's mission and adventure in Caldermere. So who do we pick up on first?
Malcolm, you want to go?
Yep.
Reese, everyone splits off from the junction. What is Reese up to? What do we find Reese? What task are you accomplishing during this montage?
Was Reese assigned any mail?
Yeah, I think...
I guess I'll pick that up, or I'm assigned mail within Caldermere.
I think, probably, like there's a handful of letters, right? If it's like, you're a word bearer and you're here, you want to do your job, like, here you go, like, and some of these have, like, addresses written on them, right? Like, for the notation of Caldermere. And there's probably got to be, like, a map over there that you kind of have to, like you, for instance, probably don't know what Garen's basket is off the top of your head, right?
Yeah.
But a quick...
You fucking donkey.
right, but a quick study of it reveals that is the shallow pool of forest inside the cauldron that is like these kind of cultivated farms that are grafted to the iron roots that grow inside the cauldron, right? There's this kind of beautiful internal farmscape there. That's Garen's basket, and maybe you've got a letter you got to deliver to someone there. But I think that's a little bit of that, right? Is like you've got some mail.
We get a little montage of kind of walking around, scratching my head, looking at the map, sort of calling out, being like, "Hello," like probably down. Yeah, I go down into Garen's basket and I'm yelling down into this cultivation. It's like, "Is there a Mr. Walton here? I'm looking for Mr. Walton."
Sam
Yeah,
Walton.
and right, like it's a busy time down there. It is the spring harvest, right? Carts full of berries, of like different like kind of like leafy vegetables that are kind of like coming off of the winter frost and just like ripe for harvesting now. And someone shouts it out, or there's like another person like, "He's not here. I'll give it to him."
No. The word bears oath. This is for Mr. Walton's hands only. No one else.
But maybe we get this. I imagine if Hexam is like spending a lot of this afternoon at the Cutter's Edge Club, probably Reese is like covering ground across Caldermere a little bit, right?
Yeah, definitely. Getting a better lay of the land.
And so I think maybe we get like this kind of montage here. Like we're in a montage, literally, right? It is like Reese on one of these trolley trains going around the ridge on the Crescent
laying
Way.
off the side. There's a jaunty tune playing. He's got a twinkle in his eye. He's having a good time. He's like this is what it's all about.
And you see like stations, funiculars that lead down to, like I said, the Moss-like Quarter is like this entertainment district that is kind of like down on the internal side of the shallow bowl with like alleyways that are dug into the rock, right? Bioluminescent moss lighting the way inside like the darker passages. It is going up and down these switchbacks, these are kind of like big residential neighborhoods that crowd the walls. You've not been a word bearer for very long, right? You took up the mantle and left home, and this is your first big port that you've been to as a word bearer. Is that right, Reese?
Yes, the first real big one.
People are very kind to you. You ride on the Crescent Way. Some people are coming up and they're exchanging, right, like, bits and shards, like a little bit of scratch. And you're just waved on. No one charges you to ride the rail.
Nice.
I imagine, like, you pass... when you're at Garen's Basket, someone gives you a worm apple, this kind of, like...
Worm apple.
It's like it's got like a chitinous, like, shell, but a beautiful, like, soft, like, delicious interior, right? There are, like, they're handing you fruit. People are waving to you. They are smiling. Word bearers are respected here. And it probably feels, I would imagine, pretty good.
Yeah.
There is, like, a real sense of appreciation. Not everyone is, right? Someone still jostles you out of the way so they can get to the Crescent Rail first at some point. That it's not like they're rolling out a red carpet for you everywhere, but you are, like, greeted with smiles and cheer most places you go as you kind of, like, get to learn the layout of the city a little better.
I think that also, during this montage, I pass a shop that I've been meaning to go to. Don't have a name yet, if anybody has a name, but I'm, like, on my route, if you want to call it that. I pass a gunsmith.
Yeah, so I imagine it's not even just a gunsmith, right? Because, well, let's talk about, like, what you're trying to do, what you're interested in doing here. Like, what the task is. Because I think gunsmith is even more specialized, probably, than you might find in this world.
That's a good point. Yeah, they are rare.
Yeah, rare enough that, like, to be just a gunsmith... I mean, maybe, Caldermere might be the one place, actually, there is, like, just a gunsmith. It's a big enough city. But I imagine even that guy doesn't just do that, right?
He's an armorer.
Yes. This is
not a gunsmith, an armorer. So he has various shillelaghs, I imagine, spears, harpoons,
Helmets, goggles, maybe.
Cludgeons and nets, tridents,
things of that nature.
Scimitars, knives.
This is Hannah's armaments and implements.
That sounds like it's a really great. It just sounds like a craft store, but she sells like deadly weapons.
She's like 14.
No, I think that she's like that plus 60. She's like 74. This is an old woman, I think, inside like a shop that has.
What is her bloodline?
She's an ardent, right? She's an old ardent woman, and she is, I think, like stoop backed. She's got like an oiled leather apron on. I think she's moving around. It's like a big workshop behind her, and she's not the only person in the workshop. I think that she has a staff, right? But Hannah's implement and armaments is like a stall. Maybe you find this like just thinking about the neighborhoods that we've established. This is on the gate bridge, I think. There is, we talked about this big break in the caldera, right? That is where the Veilport, where all the ships dock. It leads into the basket behind it. But above that break, there is a massive suspension bridge. And this is like, it completes the circuit of the rim of this caldera, where these trolleys and trains go back and forth. And I think that on either side of this bridge, like London used to have a lot of these, like in like the Victorian era, these like bridges that have been built up with buildings on the sides of them, right? It is, covered. It's a giant market, right? There are all these like stalls and little buildings, different tongues and voices like ringing out, calling out for different items. And I think maybe you're drawn to Hannah's armaments and implements by this, like the clanging of like a blacksmith's hammer against steel, right? Like the sound of work being done on machines. And this is like, I think, as you're passing or you're getting closer, like you can feel the bridge itself swaying with the movement of the trolley around you. And, she, I think, like turns. She's got, I think, like hair pulled back in like a tight gray bun. And she comes to the front of the stall. Behind her there is like a big Ectus man who is like slamming this blacksmith's hammer. He's like reforging some kind of like engine component, I think, right? Or maybe it's like one of like the long teeth for a saw blade. Right, he's like straightening out like a saw blade tooth on like an anvil behind her, and she like kind of very curtly, yes,
hello, you must be Hannah.
Yes.
Well, Hannah, my name is Reese Kane. I've come all the way from High Sonder, and I've been sailing the Wildsea, and I've happened upon this place. It's funny how fate has brought us together in this moment, is it not?
Yes.
Well, anyway, I recently plundered and scavenged this very, very peculiar, very queer site we've discovered upon the waves, and came upon this relic. I believe it to be a handgun, or perhaps a pistol, or a pistola, or a hand cannon, or perhaps something a dragoon would carry. And then, reaches into his messenger bag and pulls out the fine, opulent pistol.
Oh, yes. Were those the tags we gave it? What did we get?
I think it was ornate.
Ornate,
It had,
not fine
some
and
sort of
opulent.
inlay.
Yes.
The fine, opulent,
Nice.
ornate, intricate, beautiful pistol.
Some of those are tags for sure. I think she, the first time, right, like her body language changes a little bit, and she actually like looks interested in what you're saying. Reaches out, draws this puts it on like an oilcloth right on the table in front of her, and starts to examine this. Look at the sheet. It is a rusty, ornate 6-shooter. I think we described it as having like ivory inlay on the handle, right? Most word bearers I know tend to be a bit more judicious with their use of the language. You throw them out willy-nilly.
Yes, well, I've been reading this book I found called The Dictionary. I've just been learning all sorts of new words.
It's a very long, dry novel.
Very experimental structure.
Still trying to pick up the plot, but I've learned a lot of wonderful, new, fabulous, and delicious and decadent words.
So let's talk a little bit about what Reese is trying to do here. Like in terms of
Yeah.
the game, right? This is
I guess I am trying to wonder, is this functional? I don't think I have any bullets. I would like to find out, does it fire? In which case, I might want to keep it. If it doesn't work, then I'm looking to trade. Because I'm sure that, or have this fixed so that it is usable. Because I am currently not strapped. I have no weapons whatsoever.
she examines this pretty, I think I said, I think her movements are stiff. She is like in her 70s in a hard world of the Wildsea. But as she picks up the revolver, I think there's like a sudden ease that she has in handling it, right? Like picks it up, flips out the cylinder, spins it, to see how like the action works there. Dry fires it twice.
Reese is like
peering down the barrel.
Yeah.
And I think a little rust, but usable, relatively standard chamber size here. And I think she pulls a basket out from beneath her, right? That is just full of bullets.
Loose bullets.
Just loose.
One of these ought to
Yeah,
fit.
exactly. That's what she does. She starts, I think, just trying different bullets in there.
Funny.
Until there's one that fits. And then I think there's a target, like a wooden target in the room behind her, and she, cover your ears. I can't hear much anymore. It won't hurt me. And she, I think, fires it, and there's an explosive burst of gun smoke. The kick of the weapon, the retort, and the splintering of wood. And she shakes some of there's a lot. It's not smokeless powder, right? This is an old school, dirty bullet, right? And she waves her head. Good. It needs a bit of repair, but I think usable. You trying to trade it? We've got lovely crossbows, and I think hanging above her head, she gestures to several crossbows. Or for a bit of polish, we might get it working again. Ammunition will be tight, but I have a bit I could trade as well. What are you looking for?
This is an interesting thing. I could, gamble it on the gun. I'm trying to feel am I more of a gun guy, or am I more of a, slingshot kind of guy, I'm...
What I would say here, mechanically, is that I think that this is probably a acquisition task.
Okay.
Acquisition is... We've done this already, right? Research gathering when you're, in a ruin is an acquisition kind of task. But also trading cargo or resources with an NPC is also, an acquisition task. And so I think you could be trying to trade this to acquire, a new weapon. And what that will do is I will give you, a weapon that'll probably it'll be a temporary aspect. It won't be something that stays on your character sheet forever. To get those, you have to spend milestones and make them like integral parts of your character. But for like this, we could make it instead like a temporary aspect, which will still be a thing you can use that you can mark damage on, but once its track is filled, it will be gone or unusable until it is like repaired or otherwise like returned to you in some way. Otherwise, also, this could be an acquisition roll, but instead of trying to acquire something different, it could be, kind of like acquiring her services to repair the weapon.
You know what? I feel like this came to me for a reason. I'm going to have her repair, oil, lubricate the weapon, and also trade for some as much ammunition as she can spare, I suppose.
So this is an acquisition roll. So I think let's talk a roll here, right? Mm-hmm. And part of this is like the haggling, right? Is like the kind of like figuring out, what scratch you have in your pocket, what else you can trade to get this thing like repaired. So what edge are you starting with?
I'm going to start with the. I'll do the tides.
Tides.
I feel like this is I'm learning, and this is tied into the exploration part of my journey.
Yeah.
And then for skill, sway, which I've not used yet.
Oh, yeah, and sway is
a skill of convincing, arguing, and capitulating with aplomb. Use sway to convince others to act or hold back from acting, or to change hearts and minds to suit your purposes. Convincing others to change their mind on a topic, making friends and influencing people, taking the reins of a crowd's emotion, bandying words while absorbing information, or threatening through interference. So I think I'm using this sway. I would really like to get like the full package deal of like a clean and lube and some ammunition, but only for the cost of one, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which would be like some. Do you think that this is scratch worthy, or do I need to trade something more?
I think this is scratch worthy right now. It is a roll, right? So a failure here could have like consequences, which might be like maybe she's gonna make you cough up more. A disaster, you either fail to find what you're looking for or ruin the resource in the process of collecting it.
Ooh.
Right? So there's different possibilities for like what failure looks like here.
Okay.
But I up at the front, I'm not going to say you need to stake any kind of other resource besides what you already have. Are there any advantages that you have here?
I don't know. No, I think I'm just very charming.
I mean, I think that's the sway, probably.
Yeah, that's the sway. That's all I got. So I don't really think I have an advantage at this point.
All right, then I think that is 3d6 to start.
All right.
And I don't think there's a cut here. I think this is a pretty straightforward kind of acquisition negotiation.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 4.
All right, so a 4 is...
That was almost a 6.
Almost a 6. There's no twist here, which could have gone good, could have gone bad for you. So on a conflict, you gain a resource. Sometimes this is gain a resource with a negative tag. You guys do your bartering. You trade a handful of scratch for this. There's a little back and forth. And I think what happens, right, is, I think she kind of looks you up and down. And it's like, it is almost my lunch. I would need to take a break to work on it. Although, well, in your pocket over there, I see just poking out. That wouldn't be a tarnana, would it?
Is it a tarnana in your
fresh
pocket? I'm just
tarnana?
happy to see me.
I'm a little too old for that. You're a handsome young man, but I'm married and widowed already. I'm not getting back on that carousel.
Oh, Hannah, you're breaking my heart.
But
what I do have here, perhaps this tarnana would interest you, and I pull the tarnana out of my pocket.
And indeed, she will trade for a fresh tarnana. It's goopy. Texture is actually perfect because her dentures are
made out of wood.
And,
yeah, just like
she tells you this.
Just like our
These
founding father,
I'm
George
gonna be
Washington.
gnashing these.
I think she takes her teeth out in front of you and cracks the top of the tarnana and has a little squirt, and then rolls it down top, ties it off, and starts oiling the gun.
Thank you for making that very gross, Mitchell. I really do.
Hey, listen. Oh, I'm sorry that a delightful fresh fruit with a vanilla
like
scent.
like peanut butter and honey.
You don't like a little black dessert ichor? My bad.
I'm gonna remove the specimen fresh Tarnana.
Yes. But yeah, you will get the ivory hilted 6-shooter as a temporary aspect. And I think this is she oils it. It's in remarkably good shape though, right? Besides a little bit of rust, I think she has to replace like a firing pin. She's narrating this as she's like fiddling with the gun, and yeah, she gives you I think like an oilcloth like bag, and a like pouch of like all of ammunition, right? Like a it's not a big pouch, right? It's not you're not like loaded down with bullets, but you get like an oilcloth sack to keep it in, to tie it on your belt, and you get a little bag of bullets that she's pretty sure will all more or less fit this gun.
All right, cool.
And so that's a temporary aspect. Like I said, when you fill that track on it, by taking damage, things like that, it's going to eventually break and go away. Or, as you level up, you could choose to make it a permanent aspect of your character, right? Like kind of, if Reese becomes invested in this weapon and wants it to be like a signature thing, you could use your milestones to make a new aspect to turn this into like a real weapon that we will talk about, kind of what that means as an aspect. But I think, just to start, I'm just going to write this down for you real quick. Yeah, it is a ivory handled 6-shooter that deals long range blast damage. And I think maybe also has the tag volatile. Like I said before, it's like a big, heavy revolver. Like it's shooting smoke and powder every time you fire it. And yeah, I think, after a little bit of work, less maybe than you thought it was going to take, really. Like it doesn't take her that long to get this thing into working order. But you've had a long day of delivering mail. That's for the best. You are gifted this temporary aspect, this gun. And I think our camera probably kind of pulls out again at that point to find the last member of our crew who's been busy during the day. We get the shot of like the time on the sundial, like time-lapsing back before we find Calathiel. It seems like the crew is all kind of agreed to meet back at the Twilight Review this evening to catch the show and maybe see if someone will pick a piano up off of you. So what is Calathiel doing?
I think Calathiel's like kind of taking a long walk around Caldermere today, and is sort of just finding his way there. I think he's like worked his confidence up to trying some sort of little like street food, thing from like a cart. Probably see his like, cheeks turn pink and like smiling and chittering, and like not as scary as we thought kind of day. And then, ultimately I think he's taking this long walk over towards I think like the agricultural districts here over near Garen's Basket, because I have this scythe that I recovered from the Tarnana plantation, which was covered in a kind of material that let it preternaturally slide through like sticky sap, and I want to take it to someone who like kind of knows their way around like farm equipment, but also with like maybe a little bit of thaumaturgy mixed in. And the sketchmat is there's maybe like a tool librarian here, someone who kind of like could fashion a shovel from scrap should they need it, because I want to try to extract the residue that was on this to maybe be able to reproduce as a resource.
Yeah, there's probably this kind of like tool library on the interior side of the bowl of the cauldron, right, of the caldera, kind of closer to where the basket is, right? It's clearly there to like help, service like the agricultural workers who keep Garen's Basket kind of up and running, right? Right. And so it is like a pretty nice kind of like, I think, open air like kind of like market, like a flea market kind of stall almost. There's lots of different like kind of equipment there, and there are also bubbling pots of different regions, kind of working on like a little like electric table stove at the back. And I think that there is we haven't dealt with like Gal a lot, right? One of these fungus men, one of these like kind of like mushroom people who I think is like he's got the kind of, what is the type of mushroom I'm thinking of here? Like Toad's head, that little like I mean Toad, the Nintendo character.
Just like a red cat.
Yeah. Like the kind of
like many fit.
Yes. But I think like his head is kind of like almost like his neck is this kind of stem of this mushroom, and his head is this big round red kind of white spotted cap. And there's like a cluster of these like white spots at the front that are bulbous and kind of like occasionally flickering. And you can gather this is like a set of eyes, right? And there's like kind of a mouth in the stem below the cap. And I think he's like got 2 primary arms, but also there are like smaller, kind of more like tendril-like limbs, kind of snaking out from beneath like the tunic he's wearing that are grabbing things as he's moving around. And he's kind of repairing saws and hand scythes. I think he's probably actually
Jacked.
yeah, he's actually very muscular. No, he's little. He's probably about the same size as you, I think.
Oh, finally.
Or like his body is, but maybe like the neck is very long, right? Which gives him like kind of a weird height, right? Like he's just got kind of like a foot-long neck that puts his like cap head a little higher. That's kind of, and so like from behind, outside of like the kind of like stalls and tables, I think you kind of see the head and neck moving around. And oh, hello, need a hand?
Hello yourself.
This is Fedek.
Fedek.
This is FedEx Farm Repair. Fedek, Fedek apostrophe S, not FedEx Farm Repair. That's a different.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
This is FedEx, but it is not FedEx.
FedEx.
FedEx has a stall on the other side.
They pick up. What time do they pick up? What language is he speaking?
He speaks Low Sour when you approach, right? Low Sour is like I said before. In the Wildsea, language is a character trait, right? There are several different languages that the game offers us. There is like a Chthonic, which is like the ancient human language. Saprek is the tongue of the Ectus. Gaudim is the Gau language, right? This like chemical language of pheromones and then soft like body movements. And there are several others, right? There are like Rakaspit is like the rapid patter of hunting families and Leviathan hunters. But Low Sour is a skill that every player starts with 3 ranks in, which means that you don't just have a smattering, you don't just have knowledge, you have fluency in Low Sour. It is this kind of, as the game describes it, a mongrel language that has developed in the years since the shattered post-Verdigale cultures started making contact with each other. It is like the closest thing to a common tongue on the waves, and it is like probably most of the time what you are speaking to people, right? Some people, it's the only thing that they know, right? Is Low Sour, this kind of like language of the Wildsea. And so, we actually have not even talked about what your language skills are, Calathiel.
Yeah, I have like the trading tongue, Low Sour, and I have a little bit of Hyben from diving in ruins and some brass tongue, but I have 3 in Low Sour and 1 in the other 2.
Yeah, so you don't have Gaudim. You're probably speaking Low Sour with this guy.
Okay.
And I think he kind of peeks his head up, as he's like kind of walking among his tools and like I said, he's boiling pots of like salve, right, for like little minor injuries. Spore scarfs are here sold as well. It's kind of like an outfitter supply store for anyone who might work in the basket. I think it pops his head over. You see this like multitude of these milky white eyes kind of like roll around as they scan over you. It's like not much of a farmer you look like.
No, not much of a farmer is right. It's quite an operation you have here. I was looking for someone who might be able to help me with something. My ship just came to port. Found something in some salvage here, looking for an expert to take a look. I think there's something all over it. Hoping you can help me get it off. And I think he kind of explains, right? Like, I've got this scythe, shows it to Fedek, and, I think it's already on his fingers. There's probably kind of oily stains on his clothes from it. It's kind of all over the place. He's thought you might be able to use it too. Maybe we can work a trade out. Get me a vial of the oil that coats it. You can have a little yourself. He's
like, examining the tool and then kind of looking at you, and it's a very alien biology to your own, but like I think there's like a shifting in the shoulders and the way some of the eyes kind of like half squint that there's like a bit of suspicion, right? And there's like are you where did you say you find it?
Down in near Rootquake, there's an old Tarnana plantation. Turned up in the churn.
I think there's like a downward slump of his shoulders, like a soft chemical sigh, right? That feels like the scent that fills your nose for a moment. That is like you experience That's a weird thing to feel. You experience an emotion that isn't the one you're feeling, right? For a moment, you feel a little bit of sorrow.
Weird. Is it something I wafted, or I give off the wrong smell?
I think he says something like, out west of the city, on your way in.
Yeah, I reckon so. On approach.
Nods, and I think you get the impression, right, as he's looking at the scythe in his hand, right? He might have known that farm or the people who worked it, right?
Yeah, and I think Cal can see that he's obviously kind of upset, or something's going on here. So he'd say, are they friends of yours? Someone might be looking for this. He
shakes his head. Been a long time since I last heard from the folks out on that plantation, but it's hard work to work the farms, even here in the basket. More dangerous work out there. I'd hoped maybe they'd just given up, moved on for safer pastures.
Well, by the time we got there, they were long gone.
And
a friend of mine might have gotten a letter. I can see if they've had anything written.
He shakes his head and takes the scythe back to like one of these benches to examine the oil on the surface of the blade. So this is like an acquisition roll, I think, probably, right? This is like kind of the same thing that Reese was doing. This is like trading with the resources that you have, trying to acquire a new resource, right? Trading this Tarnana scythe for a distilled version of the oil on top of it, right? That's kind of like the...
Now I feel kind of bad, but... Yeah, do you mind taking this last living relic of your friend that you knew and melting it down to sort of fine ichor?
I mean, that's life on the Wildsea, baby, right? You're making do with every resource you've got. But yeah, so I think this is another acquisition roll, so we can kind of build our dice pool together here. We start with your edge. How are you kind of going about this negotiation?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of came at it pretty open-handed here. I guess I'm kind of going just for tides. This is like a learning and lore thing.
Yeah, you're sharing a story as well of how you found it. I think that makes sense. Mm-hmm. What skill do you think you're using here?
And I don't have to have any points in it to use it, right?
Well, you won't get any dice from a thing that you don't have a...
Okay. Well...
I mean, yeah, brass tongue could also work here. It's the language used by traders, right?
Yeah.
Languages are skills you can use as well.
I guess a little brass tongue wouldn't hurt. I mean, I don't know if this really counts as... I have delve, but I don't think this is quite an interpretation, and I don't think I'm trying to trick him. And I don't know if this counts as studying. So maybe I'll take one in brass tongue as a just sort of classic mercantilism.
Yeah, this is 2d6, unless there's like an advantage you have here.
Nah, not really.
Yeah. So this is 2d6, I think.
It's a 6 and a 1.
Hey, that's a triumph. That is a total success here. Nice. You have successfully negotiated with with Fedic, the farm outfitter, and I think it's kind of like he's not in a bad mood, right? He's like a little solemn here, but I don't think you get the sense that he blames you in any, you know what I mean? Like, this is not like oh, you've brought me the relic of my dead friend. It's more just like this is the kind of thing that you actually kind of just have to deal with a lot on the Wildsea, right? Is people go out and they never come back. And if you're lucky, you get to hear that at least you know what happened to them. And so you can remove the Tarnana harvesting scythe from your character sheet.
Wow, I handed to him with a heavy scythe. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all season.
And so this is, I think you're going to get a vial of free cut oil, which is a 2, I'll give you 3. I think this is 3 segments on this track. On that 6, on that full success there, that triumph. And so I think that you can mark this aspect to, I'd say mark this aspect to add a rating to your saws for the rest of a scene.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And also I would allow you to say, like, if there's
like probably other ways to
exactly, but like, just like mechanically out of the gate, you can mark this aspect to improve your saw rating by 1 for the duration of a scene.
Cool.
So if there's a time in the ship where it's like we got to cut through something, whatever, this is going to give you that opportunity, like to give yourself a better chance at succeeding, because there's no other way to improve your dice roll when rolling the ship besides.
Yeah. I like that.
It's, not a huge flask of it, right? But he's able to, like, cut it with other substances to kind of stretch out its duration. He'll be reusing it to apply that same free cut to other bladed tools here.
I'll take it. That actually is probably going to come in a lot more handy than I even thought about it at first. But
it's fun to kind of just, a lot of this game is, like, asking you to be, like, a mini game designer and figure out how to, like, make things useful.
Yeah.
And, with that, I think we can see... the sun is starting to set, right? We are approaching evening in Caldermere. Yeah, the sun is starting to set, and, we had talked about, like, you have a piano, right? Which is, like, a very interesting and valuable relic, but also kind of specific in who might want this thing. And you've, I think throughout the day, probably we've also been seeing flyers for this. You've heard it mentioned, right, by crowds of wild sailors passing around. But down in the Mosslight Quarter, there is a place called Madame Zira's Twilight Review. And it is a place for vaudeville performances, for musical acts that dazzle the mind, There are, I think probably like older flyers for different shows. But it seems that right now the main attraction at Madame Zira's is Carolyn Varr and her miraculous spirit orchestra. A haunting delight for the senses. Songs of the Wildsea, old and new. You'd kind of all talked about meeting there, so maybe we can kind of move the camera forward to this moment, right? Of arrival. I don't know if do you guys meet back up at the junction, or is this like you all kind of run into each other?
I think we probably like bump into each other at various points.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm kind of probably bumping into Hex, who's sort of in that neighborhood. It's like it's a caldera, right? So it's like basically the ring of a volcano.
Yeah.
There's probably like one central boulevard, that like runs all of it with lots of offshoot streets, but it's probably not hard to bump into people.
Yeah, especially if you're on the Crescent Way, right? Like you're hitting these same stations, these trolley cars. So yeah, at some point you three have come together, and I don't know if there's like a moment you want there, if there's any like how was your day? What did you guys get up to? Right? Hex probably like
still holding like some kind of Wildsea style ice pack. Maybe it's like some kind of like vegetal mush that like they tie up in a
cold fruit
cheesecloth and just like
a little frostberry.
Be a poultice.
Yeah. Grake was like, okay, look, we're leaving the Cutter's Edge, but this is the place you're going to want to go. They've got the good stuff to take the pain away, and just hold this on your eye, and you're going to chase it with another healing tonic that is going to bring you back to life a little bit after a rough day on the seas.
I go like, hey, check this out, and I pull the gun out.
Jesus Christ!
And I'm like, woo woo woo, like spinning it around. I point it right in the face. I dry fire it. Just kidding.
It's working again.
Yeah, I got
it. There's no bullets in it, see?
Is this awesome or what? I'm like, wow, that's the same gun?
I know. It still works, kind of.
Now, welcome to the club.
Are you carrying? You're strapped?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He does have this sort of like black market pistol. I don't think it's anything crazy, but it's like like a kind of brass looking. It's like a probably hand bored like Luger thing. But he's like, yeah, of course. That's why I gave you that one. So we can,
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we can shoot
Gun Brothers.
Yeah, we can shoot. We can have a duel if we have to. I hope it never comes down to that, huh? We're gonna be friends forever.
And then I think he kind of looks over his shoulder, but is like, just don't go showing it off anywhere here. This is a city. Freeport. And always keep it loaded and cocked. Stuff you're going to need to know now that you're in the gun club.
And, I think you find your way, riding the Crescent Way into the Mosslight Station, right? And there is like a cutting pathway that first goes down the interior side of the ridge. And then, at a certain point, there's almost like a cave-like entrance into like a path that is cut into the caldera. And here it becomes, it's hot out. That's like a thing I think we should talk about is like, there are places in the Wildsea where it is colder, but generally it's a pretty warm place, right? You are at You are high up, you are exposed to the sun. You know, the brutal winds cool things down, but like things here bake in the sun a lot, and especially Caldermere is a hot city. You know, there's industry, there are engines burning, not burning, but still putting off heat from like the chemical apparatus. There's places where fire is okay here, right? There are smokehouses like made of stone where people can go to smoke tobacco safely, you know, without endangering the other inhabitants of the Wildsea.
Wait, we got to start this over. I'm heading to the smokehouse instead now.
Ripping cigs. And so you kind of enter almost like this cave system with these like big, wide passages that are lit by this like bioluminescent moss that has been like... it's not just growing naturally, it's been like painted on, you know, in like patterns and in like you know, like to create even like signage like pointing towards like different like offshoots of these passageways. And there are also more and more of these flyers for the Twilight Review. And as you get closer, right, you can start to hear, you know, laughter, and there is the sound of music. And, you know, there are, you know, occasionally like the sound of drinks spilling, of like glass bottles breaking against walls. And I think you come into a cave entrance, right, in this delicate bioluminescent silk thread, right, that hangs from the ceiling but somehow holds like its shape, right, to say Madame Zira's Twilight Review. With like all of these thin like strands of like, it looks like strands of light, this bioluminescent like silk that holds the sign over this big arched cave entrance, you know. And I think that there are like Ectus there, you know, Ectus bouncers, these like big men whose spines have not been pulled from their hands. They are wearing, you know, like dark colored suits, but with a embroidered on the chests, right, are these like little, like, it's like a spider, but it is the same bioluminescent like silk, right, that kind of stands out on these dark suits that they are wearing. And for a handful of scratch, they are letting wild sailors in. And there is like the raucous sound of strings and percussion inside, the jeers of people, you know, yelling from the inside. You know, there's a roar of laughter that comes out. But I think that like the way this chamber is such is like you can't see any of that. You can just hear it coming from around like the dark bend of this cavern entrance. And for a handful of scratch, you too can enter the Twilight Review.
Well, I think we should.
Yeah, and we do.
And, you know, I think it's like, yeah, like this curved chamber that curves around, and then, you know, the passageway opens up into like an immense hollow in the rock. You know, it almost has kind of like an amphitheater or an auditorium kind of structure, right? There's like a big stage in the back, and I think carved into the stone, right, there are bars along the lengths of the side, and then there are like, you know, this kind of big shallow pit in the center that is like where there are like tables and chairs. There are sailors who are drinking and shouting with each other. There is, you know, like kind of like in front of the stage, like a dance floor. People are dancing. I think on the stage right now there is like a trio of Ectus who are playing these kind of like big, complicated, like ramshackle string instruments, and then like another one who has kind of like a big percussion set, right? Not like a real drum kit, right? But like a kind of like a, you know, I imagine like a big, almost like wooden box that he's beating with different instruments to get different sounds out of it. And you know, it's like it's upbeat. It's like a little ragtimey maybe, you know. And there is shouting and jeering, and it's like a little bit of a party in here.
It's a juke joint.
Basically, yeah. We can kind of montage a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're sitting down and maybe I return with like, you know, like hands full of like, you know, a couple cups of like quick wine, you know. I've got some peanuts. I don't know much of a
Peanuts, all right.
peanut. Hey.
And you know, this is, you know, I think also like I wouldn't mind zooming in for a moment here of like, you know, as these like kind of like opening acts are going on, right? Like maybe this Ectus band kind of wraps up, and then afterwards there are three like Gao clown like mimes, right? There's like a little bit of like a vaudeville kind of like slapstick like silent routine here that they are doing.
A lot of fart jokes, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, there are some fart jokes for sure, right? You know, and like there is like someone accompanying it on like a like an accordion, right? And like kind of like a jaccordion. They're making these like different sounds to like emphasize certain jokes. This is also like the kind of day's end, the first moment that these three characters have really like been together and not been with Claremont or with Ixtalbor. Although maybe Ixtalbor is here at a different table.
Yeah.
He's at
with like a bunch of
of these like big Ectus with like these like vegetable scar tattoos, who are all wearing, I think, like these like big red like poppy blossoms on their shirts. But yeah, there's a moment here. I don't know, I'm just kind of curious. Like, you guys don't know each other super well, and this is like kind of you finished the first leg of the journey, and this is like your first outing together. And there's like part of me that's just kind of curious about like how each of you feels about this journey so far and about each other, and like how that comes out in the way that you're interacting.
That's like a job's a job right now, right? Like we're kind of ferried, and I think maybe how this opens up in scene, Cal, I guess with these cups of quick wine in hand, would kind of hold it up to the light or something, looking at the hue of the burgundy. We're gonna say, well, what should we drink to, sailors?
To adventure.
To adventure.
Take a sip.
And what else?
And, well, we should keep them coming. More toast then. More glasses.
Yeah.
I suppose to our fearless leader.
To our
Montclair.
Yes, our
May he walk with care.
Our benevolent benefactor and patron.
I think taking a heavy swig.
How many suits do you think
I'm sure
he brought?
he's
Over 5?
At least 2. And there was the one before. And he's got his little outfit for the delve. That's 5.
I guarantee
Probably
you
more than
he
that.
leaves with 3 more. If there's a town to get something to look flashy in, I'm sure the captain will find it. He knows how to dress for occasions, that is for certain.
Well, and he's not with us here now. Ixtalbor seems preoccupied.
Ixtalbor's like with his buddies. They're all speaking Sapric, and like he's talking mad shit.
I
Well, I
wave.
think that's
and
like,
he doesn't wave back.
does
Yeah,
not
yeah.
wave. Sees you, doesn't wave.
Yeah, for sure.
We're all like, hey, and
He is so cool.
He says something to the rest of the Ectus, and then they all start laughing.
Yeah.
I knew he liked me.
He probably said something really funny about us. That's about how cool we are.
I bet you're right. He's probably telling that funny story I told him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You guys got to meet.
Over, under
You guys
on-
are gonna have to meet Rake. What? This guy. The whole crew that he races with. They're just phenomenal. I learned so much. Really came in contact with the true nature of the sea today, I feel.
maybe you'll be piloting next time.
They said it came naturally to me as I have to put the ice pack back on my eye again. It's starting to swell again.
Boy, I tell you, everybody's real nice around these parts.
Well, I think they've kind of got things figured out. Full bread basket, all the oil fruit they can eat.
The song was right. A friend is found far and near.
And yet, it's not our final destination. Not sure what the captain's angle is here. He seems as starry-eyed as we are.
He certainly wants to tell us something later. So,
And what is this shape? I can draw it if he needs. Probably a circle, I have to guess. Flat. I think he holds up like his napkin. Probably has like a wine ring on it, right? It's like, that's
Yeah.
probably it. Hopefully that can make it into the appendix.
A hush falls over the room, and I think like the curtains are drawn in such a way that some of this like bioluminescent lighting is covered to kind of cast the room not into darkness but into like a softer light. And a woman in a this like flowing dress that is it is twilight colors, it is nebula colors, it is this kind of beautiful silk gradient of hues of pinks and purples kind of flowing into each other, begins to cross the stage. And I think that there is like this like microphone set up at the front of the stage, an amplifier that I'm imagining these kind of like old like 50s 40s like radio microphone, the kind of classic metal one. And so this woman her skin is white, but it is not the white of flesh. It is like the white of threaded silk. And And I think she has like a, what we describe as like a humanoid shape, like an ardent humanoid shape, right? Like the same number of limbs. But her face is covered by a wooden mask, right? That is kind of attached into this, like, the white silk of her skin. And as she shifts, we can see that she kind of doesn't just move, she flows. And this wooden mask, I think, is painted to this kind of like off-white with like the red painted lips. And as she approaches the microphone, I think she stops, and then from like underneath and within the dress, two more of these like white silk limbs emerge to kind of steady the microphone in front of her.
Must be Zelicrae.
Indeed. She is Zelicrae. She is this kind of sentient spider colony that are the Zelicrae, one of the many bloodlines on the Wildsea, one of the more common ones in the modern era. And some Zelicrae don't cover their cells, their swarm self. Others do. Some wear, skin suits, right? The discarded husks of other bloodlines. Some masquerading as those bloodlines, and others taking a more artistic flair to it. But this is Madame Zira. And I think she says as much, right? She takes hold of the microphone and says, "Kind and generous patrons of the Twilight Review, I am Madame Zira, and I thank you all for joining me on this another successful evening of the Twilight Review. I hope you've enjoyed our opening performances. I myself found them delightful." She looks around over the room, and as she speaks, I think you can see these pieces of the wooden mask move to give her expressions, like almost like a very complicated ventriloquist dummy.
Ooh,
right?
weird.
Like
it's like her mandibles are moving it around.
She doesn't have mandibles. So Zelicrae are not spider people in the sense of like it's one big spider. They are thousands of individual insects who have formed a cohesive whole, right? They are the question here is always, when it comes to the Zelicrae, are you 1,000, individualities working collectively, or are you one person made up of, 1,000 sentiences? And I think each Zelicrae might answer that differently. But so she is not a humanoid spider. She doesn't have mandibles, or she does have mandibles, but she has, 10,000 of them, right? She is almost more, like her true form is like a liquid in that way, right? Like this spilling bunch of spiders who take shape. And so right now they're taking the shape of a four-armed humanoid woman, and they are moving this mask to give her the facial expressions we would expect from a person. And I think she's got like also, I'm imagining this like big, wide-brimmed hat on. Like 1920s kind of like flapper-esque, I think is kind of like the aesthetic of the Twilight Review, and especially of Madame Zira. And I think she continues, "The moon hangs low tonight, and the spirits are strong. I know why you've all come here." And, people start chanting and cheering already. They're clapping, they're excited. "While I do love to talk, I wouldn't want to go on too long. I present to you Corlin Var and her miraculous spirit orchestra." And I think, as behind her, crew dressed in black, right, with the lights going on, have been wheeling out instruments during the course of this speech, all on different stands. The Wildsea book does have like a bunch of fun, different kinds of instruments that exist. The idea of like a tris guitar is like a big guitar-like instrument with like a big pyramid bridge and like these like difficult string placements, and like the jaw accordion, right, is like an accordion with, made from the jaws of some Wildsea beastie. And I think there are horns here that are being like kind of like laid all on these racks. There is something closer to like a drum kit that is like assembled at the back of the stage. And Madame Zira, kind of effortlessly slinks off the stage. The lights are dimmed. And then another section of moss light is removed to kind of put like a single spotlight in the center of the stage. And from behind the curtains emerges an ardent woman. She is probably in her like late 30s. And she is wearing, I think, kind of like a very simple, reserved, like black dress with like white lace elements. Dark-skinned, white curly hair. I think she has, some like small thin spectacles on, and she moves slowly and quietly to this spotlight. And she has like a small instrument case in her hand, and I think she opens this case and withdraws. You would recognize this for sure, Reese. I don't know if the others would, but she draws out. I imagine it's kind of like a violin. It looks similar to a violin, but this is an ajna. It is an ardent instrument that has kind of sprung up in the post-verdancy. She looks around at the room, kind of impassive expression, and she draws a bow from the case as well, and she begins, to slowly start to play out this kind of tinny sounding, weak refrain. It's just the beginning slow starts of a song, and it is slow, and I think, the crowd has gone silent. There's a kind of anticipation in the air. And she, keeps doing it, and I think each of you in your own different ways feels a chill, right? I think the attenuative little fibers, that cover a Mothrin's body, right? They all start to stand on end. This chill fills the air, and she continues to kind of bow out this like I said, it sounds weak and empty at first, and then she stops moving the bow, but the music continues. There's like a plucking of the strings now that starts to happen, but her bow is not moving, and I think you can't see it easily at first, but there is someone standing next to her, reaching out and plucking the strings on the ajna on the fret, but they're not quite there. You can see through this person. It is another ardent. They are standing there, and you can see half through them. But she starts to resume playing the ajna with the bow, while this other figure continues plucking the strings, and now both of the melodies are going into each other. There's the sound of this like plucking on the strings, playing alongside the bowing, and then one of the horns, slow and quiet, starts to come in from behind her, and you can see someone has picked it up and is standing there. And then a faint percussion and maybe you see it happen this time, Reese, right? There's no one sitting in the chair at the drum seat, and then almost like a mist, kind of shadowy, there's a figure that emerges into existence. Like I said, it's a trick of the light almost, right? Like a shift of shadows, and then someone is sitting there, and they pick up the drumsticks and they start to play out a little beat. And each of you can watch this happen, right? As all across the stage, these other performers start to kind of half materialize. It's hard to look at them directly. It's almost like they are in the shadows, and every time you try and focus on them, your eyes can't quite see what's there, right? But the music starts to swell, and before you know it, there is a full band, 15 plus people playing on this stage, and only one of them you can really look at.
It's a ska band.
It's a ska band.
Third wave ska band, yeah.
No.
Ghost Town.
Like I said, it's orchestral. It is. This first song is slow, and I think there is like a somberness to it, right? It is beautiful. It is melodic. It is echoing. It is haunting in a way that piano riff was kind of haunting to you when you first heard it, Calathiel, right? It is, this.
I think, over the music, Calathiel's trying to get it across, like, this keeps happening to me. I keep feeling emotions from the music stuff.
I think people are crying, right? Not like weeping, but I think you can see at other tables, some people have started to tear up. And, this kind of like slow, the song builds and builds and builds, and then it kind of comes to a close, and then the room is filled with like a hushed silence again. And then I think she leans forward, and very quietly she says, "Thank you." And then the band starts to pick up, but this time it is like a more appropriate song for the atmosphere that was in this bar, in this club, a few moments before. It is more of like a raucous dancing tune. It is a classic Wildsea song about a sailor and his love waiting for him back at port, right?
It's a reverse Brandy.
But the music starts to pick up, and people start to filter to the dance floor, and the more they play, the more the people on stage kind of come into focus for you. You can see it is largely ardent, but maybe not all of them, right? I think there are like a few ectis here as well. And the thing you can also see is like their clothes are from, it's been 300 years since the Verdigale, and I think we can see like a proliferation of the different styles of clothing that have existed on the Wildsea in this 300 years, right? Mm-hmm. She is bringing up, the ghosts of spirits restless in this area, and calling them to play these tunes with her. And I think she starts singing, right? Or maybe she doesn't. In fact, she steps back. And another one of these forms, this sapric woman, this kind of sapric apparition, steps up to the microphone and begins to sing a song in sapric. There's like rolling tongue of the cactus people. And everyone who has a mire can clear that mire. There are horrors on the Wildsea that inflict mire on you. There are wonders on the Wildsea that cure it as well. For the next hour and a half, she continues to play these songs, and new musicians appear and disappear, right? And she moves through a litany of styles and sounds, and more instruments are brought out. And at some point, like someone is like from the crowd pulls out an instrument and like brings it to the stage and leaves it there. And a few moments later, an apparition forms and picks it up and adds that sound to the spirit orchestra. And we don't have to like go song by song here, right? But it's a night of beautiful music and a sense of like, there are some people who are like, as these later nights go on, like weeping, right? The person who brings their instrument up, you can see they recognize the person playing the instrument, right? There is a callback to the spirits of this place in particular and the people who live here. And so it is a lot of ardent and ectis music, because I think that is like the primary population of Caldermere.
Leave it on the haunting notes of the spectral review, I guess. It's funny to imagine a cactus guy ghost.
Yeah.
Cute.
Listen,
I like it.
It ain't just ardent who die on the streets here or on the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'd like to see an AI do that.
I think I said like it's an hour and a half of music, right? And then the show kind of comes to a close, right? And I think people are throwing scratch on the stage, right? Like there's like a raucous and joyous celebration of this. And maybe there is like, more music that kind of goes into the night, but it is like just a band there to give someone something to listen to as they're drinking and dancing. Yeah, exactly. All right. These three actors come back out. They give a lengthy pause for like the applause and for the kind of mood to shift a little bit. And then, I think we can follow the crew back out. Unless anyone has anything that you want to get in here, but
maybe. I mean, like, are we trying to get someone here to take a look at the organ?
I think we can come back to it probably, right? Like,
okay.
We don't have to play out trading that later. I think we can like,
Cool.
Yeah, after we saw the review, the next day we were like, we had such a great time. Would you perhaps like add this to the...
Is there a Monsieur Zero?
That's not the kind of lady that Madame Zira is.
Okay, I'm sorry.
She's like several thousand spiders.
Hey,
I'm not like most girls. I'm several thousand spiders in a carapace.
If you want to get with me, you got to get with 1,000 spiders.
Hey, listen. Love takes all kinds of shapes out on the Wildsea. I would say here, we don't have to like role play it out, right? But I think there is probably like an opportunity to like indicate you have an instrument that you are interested in trading, right? And like I think probably you don't talk to Madame Zira directly, right? They're like one of these staff members, one of these bouncers with like the illuminated spider, right? Is able to tell you like, come back during daylight hours. This is not, this ain't piano trading time. We're trying to make sure that these drunk people have a good time and don't start any fights.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Piano trading hours obviously from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
I thought, all right, gotcha.
There's a giant sundial in town, so you can actually just...
There's a big
There's a
sign
sign
out
that
front that
says-
says
yeah.
piano trading hours.
But, we follow, I don't know who has a good buzz on, who doesn't, right? Who's been drinking, who hasn't, but
We're
Certainly.
all toasty.
Yeah, for first night at port, it'd be strange for sailors.
Rosy cheeked. Yeah.
And so you two kind of, or as you three kind of stumble your way out from the moss-like corridor, right, towards one of the funiculars that'll take you back up to the ridge line, and then eventually get you back to the junction house. I think it's as you come out, right, from the caverns that lead into the moss-like corridor. It's a clear skied night. There are stars glittering above, and the moon hangs low and heavy. And you're within the bowl of the caldera right now in this way that, like, I think if you look up, it almost feels like the moon itself is like kind of the capstone to the caldera, right? It is like above you heavy. And you are not alone, right? You are pouring out in droves from the moss-like corridor as, like, sailors, like just like you, start to stumble their way towards their junctions or towards the ships they're staying on tonight. And as you are stepping out, I think each of you suddenly feels a little bit more unsteady on your feet. I think, Hexam, you almost tip over. Before anyone can make a joke about it, I think you all can realize it's happening to everyone around you. People are kind of stumbling. And you realize it's not that everyone's really drunk, although many of you are. It's that the ground below you is shaking.
Oh, shit.
And then it starts going to shake more. You can hear the creak of timber as wooden supports all around the ridges around you, the buildings, the structures shake and sway. This is not just a rootquake, I guess, or maybe it is a rootquake, but it is also something most of you have never ever experienced before. It is an earthquake. There is the trembling of the trees is transferring to the earth itself. And so the shaking becomes more and more intense. And you hear cries out throughout the interior of the bowl. People, in surprise, in fear and alarm, as the shaking grows more and more intense. And I think, you see in the basket below the cultivated iron roots there are swaying back and forth violently. You can hear the snap of ropes as supports on rope bridges break. The shaking is intensifying. It's heavier than any of the rootquakes that you experienced while you were on the sea before this. It is like a massive earthquake, a massive rootquake. This mother of all shaking.
Some kind of rootquake on land.
And I think you can look around and see, like, there are locals here. It's not all wild sailors, and like even the locals who are nearby look surprised. This feels more intense than what they are used to. I think the rootquakes will cause these little tremors. They will shake the caldera, but it's mostly insulated from those movements. It is not as affected as much as like the actual open sea is, but it is certainly affected now. And there's like a rumbling that fills the air as the earth shakes. And then the massive circle of light above, the moonlight pointing down, turns red for a moment. There's a burst of red light from above. All eyes are drawn skyward, and you can see there is a burning red star, a shooting star moving across the sky, across the face of the moon. Its light reflected off the moon, bathing the caldera in this blood red light. And then it continues traveling through the sky until it goes past the rim of the caldera out of your sight. And the shaking slowly starts to subside. And the light returns to normal.
So that's a good thing? This is a good sign, right?
That's really hard to say.
No, I don't think
What was
so,
in that
Reese.
quick wine?
I think we'll discover the answer to that and what else is going on here in Caldermere
Oh, no.
on the next episode of Risky Standard.
In Caldermere, the fire burns bright and it falls so far.
Yeah, it's Caldermere, but
Maybe
the,
we
like,
got it on the first one.
Caldermere, but like the slower version, like something in the way when they use that kind of version.
Oh, kind of like this is like
A sort of like single piano note
Yeah.
tapping,
There were a lot of things that I thought that the Wildsea season of Risky Standard was going to be, but I did not have it down in my notes as the musical season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one caught us all by surprise.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Tune back in next time, folks, here on Risky Standard, where we'll discover the mysteries of the burning red shooting star and maybe trade a piano during the proper daylight hours.
Tickets are on sale now.
Bye-bye.